Assalamu alaikum. You see it, we did it. Alhamdulillah, it's recording now. So your patience paid because I was about to, and I'm a little bit nervous. I'm just gonna let you know that up front. So
Don't be
if there's
nervous.
any like oversights on my part, just have grace as you've been doing, alhamdulillah. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and introduce you. Bismillah ar-Rahim wa sallallahu Sayyidina Muhammad. This is Dr. Shaakira Abdullah. She is known as the Halal Sexpert and is a sexologist with a master's degree in human sexuality and a family nurse practitioner with a Doctor of Nursing practice degree. She is passionate about providing sexuality education to the Muslim community from an Islamic perspective. Dr. Shaakira Abdullah currently works as a full-time nursing professor at Widener University. Hope I said that right. And she'll earn a PhD in human sexuality in 2023. So, Dr. Shaakira, in your own words, who is Dr. Shaakira and who does she speak to?
Dr. Shaakira is a sexuality educator who primarily focuses on providing Muslim youth with that education from an Islamic perspective. That's pretty much who I am, mainly on this platform, yes.
All right. And then who does she intend to impact with her work? Because this can definitely be beneficial to a variety of people and walks of life. But who did you begin in mind? Who did you begin with when you started out, and who did you have in mind?
Okay, so when I first started, I started off with the youth. So my goal was to focus on the youth. I myself was born and raised Muslim in New Jersey, and growing up, my parents had never talked to me about sex. So it was kind of like, okay, well, how do I navigate through this society? I didn't think about that at that time. I was kind of just like going with the flow and kind of just being influenced by my friends. But long story short, 2 months after my high school graduation, I found out I was pregnant. So my parents were really like shocked. They were really hurt, really, because they put me through the best schools. They had me in all these different Quran classes and Arabic classes. They even sent me to like Egypt over the summer to really get a good understanding, the strong foundation of the religion. And then, this happened. So they're like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
So they were really hurt. My both of my parents are Black Muslims. So they were really like, this is just like how, for them, they didn't know how to maneuver, like how to handle their feelings and then how to help me, how to support me. So for them, it was kind of like, they didn't shun me. So I really, am grateful to Allah they didn't do that.
Yeah.
But they did kind of not encourage me to go to the masjid, if that makes sense. So it was kind of like, yeah, we're going to Jummah, you can stay here. Like it was just kind of like, you're pregnant, I don't want all of this attention. When I really should have been in the masjid more at that time, asking Allah for his forgiveness and his mercy and getting back on my deen. So it took a while for me to finally come back to Islam. But once I did, I finished my, supporting me through my education. And while I was getting my doctoral degree in nursing is when I did my first introduction into like sexuality education, where I did this study where I met this sexologist who was doing all this great innovative work within barbershops and hair salons and churches, and she was doing all these great like sex education curriculums in those spaces. So I was like, oh my God, I need to do one in the masjid, because I know of Muslim girls who are struggling with some of the same things I am and what I've been through. So we definitely need to do it in the masjid. So she helped me put that study together, and I ended up doing that for my doctoral project at the end of my degree.
Okay, well, hold on. Can you rewind? Because you just threw in doctoral degree like it's child's play. And it's like, how do we get there? Because for many people watching, even a high school diploma is a big deal. So as a young Black Muslima, what were the steps that you took to become a professional degree holder?
So for me, it was all about, and even when I tell you my story later on and how I got into sexuality, it was always about what my community needs. So when I first got my first degree, I was very I wasn't thinking large. It was kind of just like, oh, I need a job. I need to definitely take care of this baby, and I want to be successful, and I just need a good job. So being
That's
a
real.
nurse is a good job. Everyone says that I will make a good nurse. I'll try it. So
And it's a
I went
reality.
to
Yeah.
school.
Mhm.
I went to nursing school with that in mind. And once I finished, it was like, okay, now I'm this nurse. I'm making pretty good money. What's next? So then when I started looking, I started like floating throughout my hospital and working on different floors, and I loved it. But I was like, I can't be on the floor forever. Like I was like, I don't want to be a bedside nurse forever. And then I kept seeing, I worked in a really urban community hospital. So a lot of taking care of a lot of minorities, a lot of people who looked like me. And it was like, by the time they got to me, they were so sick. So it wasn't so much I can do at that point. Like I'm educating you, but at this point, I'm just trying to help you stay alive. Like it's not, you can't really have a great quality of life. So I was like, well, how can I meet these people on the outside, like in the outpatient world before they get so sick? Like, how can I educate them beforehand? So that's when, so that at that time I was just sometimes just doing basic workshops on how to eat better. And I was like, well, how can I do more? So that's what led me to wanting to become a family nurse practitioner. So I can diagnose and prescribe and all of that in the outpatient world and kind of help prevent patients from getting so sick where they need the hospital.
The hospital. Okay, like preventative medicine, sort of. Is that what it?
Yeah.
What is it? Okay.
Yeah.
And wow, so it sounds like you're not just for Muslim. You're not just serving the Muslim community. Is that your target, or how would you define, who you serve and who you're really seeking to impact?
Well, definitely primarily the Muslim community because we don't have it. Alhamdulillah, sexuality education is very broad because it's for all human beings pretty much. We all have some type of sexual, that's a part of our nature. But there's so many curriculums, there's so many people out here that's doing this work for other populations, but not really for us. We're so limited on how many sexuality educators that we have specifically for us, and want to include like our Islamic beliefs and values. So I do, when I am asked to do workshops for general populations, I do, but they know that I'm the Halal Sexpert. Like I primarily focus on my Muslim population.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's really interesting that you were able to kind of transition from nursing into this. And I think for many watching, they might also wonder, and you touched on it, you did touch on it as far as your mission and how you got to it and all, but the biggest thing that you may have wished you knew going through that process as a young woman, what is one, I guess you could say, piece of advice, but more so thing that people won't tell you when it comes to walking the path of your mission, whatever that might be?
For me, I'm grateful for the journey because I am still a nursing professor. So nursing is still a part of my everyday life, and I still see patients as a nurse practitioner. But sexuality is just a great addition where I can include that also in my nursing work. So when I'm talking to my nursing students, I'm informing them, like we feel comfortable enough to talk about people's like bowel movements and what color their stool looks like and what color their sputum looks like, and all of that stuff, but we don't want to talk about sex. And even though people may be sick, they still want to have sex. So you have to help them, whatever their disease process is. I always challenge them and invite them to ask questions in a comfortable way, and to be comfortable with talking about sexuality with their patients. So although the standardized way of nursing is now, especially, in nursing schools, it's all about kind of teaching you to help you pass the board's exam. They don't include much sexuality, so I'm kind of limited on how much I can give. But I say that to say that I include that, like that is included in me, and how I'm able to, a part of my experience, and how I'm able to include that in both of my worlds. And then with nursing, I can include that in sexuality because I know the human body through nursing and different aspects of disease processes and stuff like that. So I kind of married the two, if that makes sense.
Right. So I'm going to give you a scenario because I have a teaching background and naturally like my own life experience too. Situation where young girl gets her period really early, and she has to go to the doctors, and the doctor asks, have you had the birds and the bees talk? And on the spot, her mom just like the doctor asked the mother, and then on the spot, the mother just asks her. And she's read it in a book somewhere. But this can be the situation where it's just like a really quick, like just bare bones conversation, and then that's it. And I know in one of your videos you've mentioned, mashallah, how you slowly ease into those conversations bit by bit. You don't just, you know, it's something that's really sacred. So what I'm getting at is what would you say are some harmful effects of not taking your approach of slow and steady building up to talking about sexuality for our young men and women?
I think when we try to throw too much at them, it gets confusing, number one,
Mhm.
and then it may build some feelings of like strong disability, like not disability, but discomfort. Like they really feel uncomfortable with having this conversation to you. They may not ever want to come back to having this conversation with you because it was just too much.
Mhm.
And now they may debrief with someone else. They may debrief with a friend, or, my mom was telling me about this, and they're like, oh, I know about that. I can tell you about that. And it's kind of, an unreliable source. And it's important for us as Muslims and Muslim parents to infuse our values and beliefs in that. And I don't just mean like what's haram and halal, but making sure that we incorporate, the love of Allah, so that they include that when they think about their bodies and they're learning more about their bodies, that, Allah created this body for me, and how, inshallah, I'm worthy for marriage. And just taking things through a different lens, so they can see through different perspectives, and really develop that love and cultivate that love when, another sexuality educator from the school or a friend or Dr. Google is not going to be able to really provide that for them. So,
Right, yeah. And then you touch on this negative self-image that can come as well
mhm,
when you don't have that strong foundation about how you see your body and sexuality and all of that. So it is very important, mashallah. It's very important. Um, and so we touched on the biggest questions that I have. But I think for many just average people, they also want to know about work-life balance because you're doing a lot. You, mashallah, not just online, mashallah, but even, on the ground. So how do you keep that work-life balance? How do you stay, a family woman and also, be a role model for other family women and men and the community? Mhm.
mhm. A lot of it is making daily to-do lists. So every day I have the 3 top things I need to do today. Um, so I go by that every day. I
Only
try
three,
to
just three.
3, because it's like,
Mm.
because you have a whole list of things to do. It's like, what is the top 3 things that I definitely need to get done today?
Priorities.
And if I have time, I have maybe one more. If not, then tomorrow I will start off with that one I didn't get to,
Mhm.
or the one I didn't get to finish. And then it's an ongoing list.
Okay.
And then um, prioritize. Yeah. So it's all about like prioritizing different tasks and prioritizing different things. So even if I have a whole lot of work to do, but maybe a family thing is going on, or I need to be there for my kids or something, I may have to like shift things and kind of just prioritize, because you still get the same amount of time pretty much each day.
Yeah.
And you're going to have different meetings or whatever it may be. But just prioritizing like, okay, what needs my attention definitely today,
Mm.
or during this time, and then going by that.
From that, yeah. Prioritizing. Excellent. That's just what it sounds like because it's so easy to get washed up in like multiple tasks versus just focusing in on what is most important. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's amazing. Um, so in your testimony to the effectiveness of that, let's just shift gears a little bit here, because you may know that the channel is going on kind of start is really people's attention goes to the soulmate information. They want to know, how do I find my soulmate? They want to know about intimacy. And so you definitely touch on that with your talks. Intimacy is integral to healthy sexual, all that. So you're the expert. If you could talk to us about your thoughts on soulmates and the role intimacy plays in those conversations, how do you see that?
Okay, well, definitely, especially for us as Muslims, I think soulmates, uh, it starts with us having a conversation with Allah, and us having, you know, sincere prayer. Before I got married, I remember I used to do the most when it came to like worship, because I was like, you know, Allah, like I need this husband. So I really did a lot. So I was just like, okay, and I'm not like bragging or anything, but just to show you how I understood that Allah is in control of everything, that if this soulmate is out here, if this husband who is a perfect fit for me is out here, he knows where he's at and he knows where, you know, he's going to bring him to me. So it was like, you know, I'm fasting Mondays and Thursdays. I'm getting up for tahajjud at the third of the night. I'm going to Jummah every Friday. I'm giving in charity, whatever the little bit I had, because I was in school. And I was just like, you know, making dua every day, asking Allah to help me, guide me, be the person, and then also striving to be the person that I would marry. So just really being the best version of me in like all different aspects of myself. So any type of emotional work I needed to do, any type of healing that I needed, I was working through that with different people. And just really, so could we think about soulmates, you know, Allah connected your soul before you came into this world, right? So he's the all-knowing, he's the wise, he created you, he knows what's best for you, and kind of just letting go for that. Like I was getting so sick of failed attempts pretty much. So I was getting in and out of these like intended relationships. So I would meet someone who was interested, and then I'm so excited, and then we start the process, and then it's like, oh no, you know, they didn't check out. This one don't check out. And it's like, you know what? I'm so done. Like,
absolutely.
I'm so done talking to like my wali, my father, what are these brothers doing out here? Like, he's like, just ask Allah to send you someone. And I was like, oh, that's, you know, used to kind of like the cliche, like, oh, just be patient. But it was like, no, I can patiently persevere, where I can still beg Allah and do all these extra things and you know, ask on a blessing with someone. But at the same time, I can also be clear about what I'm looking for and do the work that I need to do on myself to be the ideal spouse, the ideal wife that I want to be. So I would challenge single people to do that. Don't just be kind of like, I know they have apps and everything now, and you can definitely be open to that, but also as you're persevering, trying to find your spouse through that, don't forget about the prayer part, like the prayer of consulting with your Lord, sincerely, wholeheartedly, making your sincere duas, like pouring your heart out to him, because he knows what you need, and begging him to send you that person, I think definitely goes a long way.
Definitely. And it's a very practical approach. It sounds like ultimately you're working on yourself, as in being the person you want to attract, and that ultimately you are your own best soulmate, you know, the person you got to be with all the time. So that makes a lot of sense that you would, you know, mainly focus your work inwards and that sort of thing in the relationship with Allah. So thank you for that. And then I also want to get you to speak to those people who may be struggling in relationships. Like, what is your advice for you know, most people, everyone has those moments where we're going to struggle, and so what is your advice with that?
Well, that's a whole show in itself, but I would say number one, check in on, so sex is just an accumulation of all these other aspects of the relationship. So a lot of times, when we find ourselves sexually dissatisfied, it could be something as simple as communication, something like you not sharing what you don't like, and the person, your partner, may think that you love this thing, so they always do it because they think that they're pleasing you when it's not, and you don't say anything because you think you're going to hurt their feelings, and it's just this cycle of displeasure. So it's like, so now, you know, you're fed up, now you're resentful, you're just tired of this person. It's like,
a dog chasing his tail.
Yeah, maybe we just grew apart. It's like, no, you just need to open your mouth and share and be open and have an open and honest conversation with each other about the things that you like and the things that you don't like. And also, it's important to give like positive reinforcement when your partner is doing something that you love or something that you do appreciate, that you do let them know that you love this thing or you appreciate this thing, because it helps, you know, build their confidence and them see that, okay, they do like this thing. And then also, taking time to increase your intimacy in and outside the bedroom. So it doesn't always have to be about sex. It shouldn't always be about sex, but you also should have a comfortable relationship where you're building like spiritual intimacy, where you're doing like couples acts of worship together, to build your relationship with Allah, your social intimacy, where you're able to go on dates and like real dates, not just like dinner and a movie, but like an activity together. So it could be like a paint night, it could be skating, it could be going for a walk and holding hands while you walk, or like a bike ride. It's so many things to do, especially now outside is like back open. And it doesn't even have to be expensive. It can be like a walk in the park, but something that you're doing together, that you're talking to each other and really having deeper conversations, building like intellectual intimacy, where you're talking about things that you're both interested in, and just getting to know each other on a more personal level, like you're dating within the marriage. I think it's very important.
Within the
So
marriage.
just taking time to communicate, I would say, first and foremost, and then build in those other areas, so that you connect better. It's all about feeling comfortable and vulnerable with this person and connecting on so many different levels. And if you're able to talk about all of that and can connect in those other areas, then your sex life will be amazing, because you'll be able to communicate that clearly. You'll be able to connect and be open. If you can be open about your feelings, you can be open naked. So it's just about connecting those things.
And I notice you do focus on within the marriage. That's obviously what makes it halal as far as overt sexuality. But when it comes to just preparing and perhaps struggles in relationships as a whole, because it's connected, right? Like if you are very good, well, I would think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have great relationships, with family, friends, then most likely when you're in a romantic relationship, that's going to be a little smoother. So even when it just comes to relationships in general, what would be your advice for people connecting? And this is a loaded question. What I'm really getting at is how to better have a connection with our own bodies, our own souls, so that we can connect with other people, obviously in a halal way, because it can feel sometimes for single women like I'm just stuck. I don't have a spouse, I don't have a partner, and that's just what a relationship is. But in reality, we have relationships every day, even with, the food we eat and things like that. So can you talk about how to build um, that muscle, if you will?
For yourself,
Mhm.
in yourself in regards to future marriage, or in regards to like building your own personal relationship?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just improve, like for those who struggle in relationships as a whole and may not be married,
Mhm.
how did you perhaps build on that muscle before you were in a committed um, marriage relationship?
I guess it starts with reflecting on what you want. So even before that, even before you're reflecting on the spouse, doing what you need. So that means reflecting on things that you like about yourself and things that you want to improve about yourself, some challenges that you're having, and kind of just going through that list. So really reflecting on yourself, things that you do well, things that you need a little work on, and just working on yourself. And sometimes you may need help, you may need a therapist, you may need a coach, you may need, someone else to help kind of guide you through that. And even if it's something that requires like a healing process, to not be afraid of those things. And but I would encourage you to work on yourself first before going into another relationship, because now before you get married, it's just you and the law, like it's just all about you. But once you get married, you're also responsible for this other person. It's like it's 2 for 1 now. So now you can't only deal with your stuff, now you got to deal with their stuff. When everyone's gonna come with something. So it's important for you, I think, to just work on being your best self, and think about what that looks like for you, and working on that person, to be that person.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you touch on challenges of like looking at challenge of yourself, improving that, strengths. We all have strengths. We talk about building on those. So what would you say is an example of a strength, maybe that you have that somebody could build on, that you built on, and use in service or to empower others?
um wow, you just put me on the spot. A personal strength, let's see. Well, for me, it's definitely talking about sex. I didn't realize that it's hard for a lot of people to talk about sex and to feel comfortable, especially talking about it with people who are uncomfortable about talking about sex. So, my language and the words that I use have to be very said in a way and presented in a way where it's digestible and able to be accepted by my community. So for me, so that was a big strength for me. So communication was a strength for me. And then but I did have to work on it, even with being, who I am with my husband, because it would be times like, okay, well, you go around, you telling everybody what to do and helping everybody else, but you didn't do this, or you didn't tell me this, or you were feeling this way. And I was like, all right, yeah, you're right, I didn't. So let me focus, let me work on me. So you're gonna have that, back and forth with yourself, where it's kind of like, I was doing this really good at one time, but now I need to go back and kind of work on that again. And that's just, life, that you're on this journey of life, and you're gonna have your ups and downs, and you're going your road, and just go with it. Just work on yourself, and take it day by day.
Yeah. But what I'm hearing is that your strength is definitely when it comes to communicating and talking openly about sexuality. You do it in a way that other people can still digest it. It's tactful and it's tasteful. So, it is empowering when that happens and you do present yourself in the way you do, clearly, upholding and taking your dean seriously. That's what people can see, even if they don't know your backstory, your life, all that. So it's a beautiful thing, and we are so thankful. Go ahead.
Another one I was gonna say, it's important to not be afraid to share your story, because you would be surprised about how many people are going through like exactly what you're going through.
Sharon, okay, so that is a strength too, to have that bravery, you could say, to be able to share it as well. So, this probably won't be included, maybe it will, but I definitely would love to continue this conversation, Dr. Shaakira, because I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but you're an education leader. And, moving forward, it would be great to have you in more spaces where you are, educating our young Muslim men and women. So that's something that, inshallah, we can continue to talk about. But yeah, thank you so much again for your time. I don't want to take too much of it. You're a very busy woman, and you do have, it is Jummah, so don't let me take your butter cats and your hasanats. But it was really great meeting you. And yeah, I really appreciate your openness, because we really haven't met before. We don't know each other. This is the first time, but yeah, alhamdulillah, it's such a blessing. So, and if there's any closing thoughts or comments, concerns, QCC, you want to add on, feel free.
Okay, alhamdulillah, just thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Inshallah, we'll be in touch. You take care. Assalamu alaikum.